Good.
Welcome to the Hartland Selectboard meeting on Monday, June the 3rd. First order of business are the minutes from May 20th. I would entertain a motion to accept them. So, thank you, Clyde. A second? A second. Thank you, Tom. Any discussion?
Me. This is just the minutes?
Just a minute.
It was, I think one typo I sent to you guys. Did you guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't have who's second one item.
Yeah, that was the typo.
That was the one that was brought to our attention earlier.
Okay. Are we all set? Yep. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Next item are the orders or accounts payable through today at June the 3rd. Again, I would ask for a motion to accept those.
Make a motion to accept the orders.
I'll second it. Thank you. Any discussion?
Okay.
What was the repair bill all about?
The repair bill. The
Southworth?
Milton.
Yeah. What was that?
Those are grater blades.
Oh, okay.
And John, we talked about getting a second estimate for tree removal. Was this
Correct.
Was this, the same cemetery that we did this?
Yes, this is the invoice that we talked about. This is
Last week.
the 3 trees on Station Road.
Okay.
So is this the total expense? Or
That is a total expense. That is the invoice from Ted Dennis.
Is that, what was the cemetery budget for trees?
This was not a budgeted item.
Okay.
The limbs were falling and it was decided that they had to come down.
Gotcha. Trees are probably in our right away.
Their trees are probably in our right of way. They were falling on the gravestones and in the road.
Yeah.
So.
And they picked the one that they thought would do the most damage to the headstones, but they probably all would.
There's probably at least one more tree that needs to come down, for which we will make some phone calls and see what we can do in terms of pricing.
Yep.
But the only question I had is on the windshield.
It was Rob's truck. There had been an existing crack in the front windshield that was slowly migrating its way over to the driver's side. And the fuel tank that's in the back of the truck, the nozzle got turned and went through the back windshield. So
nice.
Now there is new glass, and we are looking at getting a back rack for the truck to prevent things like that from happening in the future.
Absolutely.
John, where are we applying fertilizer?
That is for the parcel of land that is conserved behind the park and ride lot. That is apparently a long-standing agreement that we have with the property owner. We will cost share.
The agreement was for not for fertilizer, but just for lime.
This is that you have the extent of the information that I have available to me is that
it's always been very vague to me as well.
It seems like it is.
So we don't have a formal agreement?
It does not appear that there is a formal agreement between us and the property owner.
60% of the bill.
Well,
we will investigate getting. Yes, I would love nothing more than to actually have something written down. Yes.
Yeah, this is a deja vu conversation.
Yeah, it sounds like.
Yeah, we talked about it last year, Mark. I'm assuming there's no written agreement. No. But it's been going on well, Clyde, you might not know when this has been on.
I didn't know Pat until I got on the board. So. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I like the idea that someone's actually haying the fields.
I might have some information.
To Rob, yeah.
So, the town has, had Carlton Land mow that open area for as long as I've been on the commission, which is probably 10 years. And, for a long time, in exchange for mowing, he gets the hay, that sort of, for a long time, he did not put any sort of amendments on the land, and the quality was going down. And so probably 5 years ago, they did some soil testing and decided that it needed to have some fertilizer applied. And so he arranged for that, I believe, and asked the town to pay half, and the town did. Since then, I think that he pretty much, whenever he feels like it needs something, he does it and sends the town a bill for the half. But there's not any discussion that I know of between the town and Carlton about when to do something or what to do.
I'm glad to hear that he's doing soil tests. That's really the only way we can really tell for sure.
I don't know if that's been ongoing, but it's certainly, that was sort of the initiation.
Okay. Next time I'll see him, I'll be brave enough to mention that to him. My last comment is we have a payment to VEMR's, I assume, for the pension plan. We talked about creating, for the beginning of the fiscal year, a benefits statement for employees so that we benefit employees, saw what their salary was plus their benefits. There may not be enough time to get it done now, but I think we should move in that direction to.
It's early.
Yeah. I mean,
Good suggestion.
it's absolutely. I think it's helpful, and it will help to when we get people in the door to hopefully kind of seal it for us.
Yeah.
If we can show them that it's not just your base pay, but it's the benefits as well.
Right.
So we'll come back to staffing later on in the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, discussion on the orders? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Moving on, are there any public comments? I would like to make one. Oh, I'm sorry. Before that, adjustments to the agenda. We have the Merritt Campbell on the executive session already.
Yep,
so
it's on the back side of your agenda, number 9.
Okay. Public comments. I just wanted to mention that on Friday I attended the first farmers market back on Foster Meadow, and it was quite well attended and an awful lot of food choices. So if you're looking for a place to have a Friday light supper, that's the place to be. Moving on, we have no old business. Our next order of business, new business, are liquor licenses, and I believe we have liquor and tobacco licenses to approve tonight.
Correct. So this is the printout form that we get when businesses go online to submit their application. So it's a little clunky to look at, and I apologize for that, but this is the process. So these are all new, they're new applications for this year, but they're all the same businesses that you've seen in years past. So it's Three Corners Market, Mike's, and Skunk Hollow. They all have different types of licenses. So, a Class 1 liquor license is for beer and wine. A Class 3 is for spirits. The Skunk also has an outside consumption permit application. So that's why you're seeing multiple applications for the Skunk Hollow Tavern, multiple applications for Mike's. But they're all in essence singular applications for those 3 businesses.
It is interesting to see who owns these establishments.
Sure.
Just on the side. Okay, what is there?
So I spoke with the clerk and there's no clear guidance. My recommendation would be to make a single motion for each business, not for each license for each business. But you're going to approve the liquor and tobacco licenses for Mike's. Motion, separate motion for the Three Corners and separate motion for the Skunk Hollow.
Will that work for everybody?
Yeah. So for Mike's or for,
Am I correct? There's just two
Sugar
Mike's,
face.
one tobacco, one beer, one.
Correct. Yeah, I was just trying to give you a rundown. I think the Skunk Hollow has a class 1 and class 2 and an outside, or class 3 and an outside consumption.
They were using the
yeah,
business entity name or the location name?
I would use the business entity name as they are the applicants for the license.
I
make a motion that we approve the licenses for Sugar Face and Company LLC, AKA Jake's Market, for tobacco and liquor license.
is there a second?
I second, but like to make an amendment to tobacco first class. Wait a minute.
Okay, I have no idea what the difference is. I'm not sure.
So see tobacco. See, I see two tobacco.
Well, one's a tobacco substitute.
So it's three. Potentially three.
Maybe I'm wrong.
This is where I went out this afternoon trying to follow.
Yeah, it's
So we have a second class license.
there's another one.
Okay.
It's further
All right,
in.
so there's three licenses
Yeah.
for these guys. So I'd like to amend that motion to specify the tobacco license, the tobacco substitute endorsement, and the second class liquor license.
Any discussion?
Is that accepted amendment?
Certain, sir.
Excellent.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Going on to the next applicant. Someone make a motion.
Just trying to find it.
So, there.
Yeah, that's Unibear's skunk, right?
Yes.
But then they have another name at a different license, right?
Well, Unibear is the corporation name.
They're all three.
All under Unibear. I'm just
Yeah.
checking, so I'm not corrected again. I don't want to cry again. Okay, so what do we got for Unibear? So I make a motion.
There should be two, right, Sean?
There should be.
Two,
I have three.
three. So we have, make a motion, we accept the licensing for Unibear. One is a first-class restaurant bar license. One is, you got them all?
Yeah.
One is an outside consumption permit, and one is a third-class restaurant / bar license. So 3 licenses in total.
Is there a
And again,
second?
Unibear is
Yeah,
Skunk Hollow, just so people.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. One more.
One more for Mike.
3 Corners.
3 corners.
Three corners.
You have that handy? Since you got it?
I'll make a motion to accept the second class liquor license for Three Corners Market LLC.
Is there
I'll
a
second that.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? So clarification, the second class is to sell beer and wine.
The second class one, I could not find information for. The first class is beer and wine. Third class is spirits. I don't know if the state website, when I was trying to find this information today, was,
Might be a resale version.
was
So that would think.
unclear.
Second class is malt and vinous beverages for outside the premises consumption. I didn't see a tobacco license.
Yeah.
I did not see a tobacco license for the Three Corners Market either.
Yeah.
And
So
I'm
that
not
will
so
be
sure that
forthcoming.
tobacco licenses are approved by us anymore.
This is from my understanding, talking to John Paul, this is the first year they're kind of rolling out this online system
Yeah.
for applications. Yes, we potentially would be seeing another tobacco license.
So I think, did we vote on that or do we just make the motion?
Motion second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay. Oh, what was meant by, there's a new software? Is that what you're,
They've moved the application process fully online. So they fill this out online. They fill all this information out. It goes to the clerk. The clerk notifies me, i.e. the board, for you to make this motion. And then the clerk can go back in and essentially approve their licenses online.
moving on to our next agenda item is the Jenne Town Forest Management Plan. Rob, would you like to?
So I'm Rob Andrei with the Conservation Commission. The Jennetown Forest is a 24-acre parcel of land between Dodge Lane and Katy Brook Trail down in the southwest corner of Hartland. It's steeply sloped and the only real access is on the Katy Brook Trail. And so it's not really a place where you could harvest timber very easily. We've had a couple of foresters look at it and they say not only is it not a very accessible piece, but the wood that's there is not very good. So the Conservation Commission has been talking extensively with the county forester, Jenne Dallas, about what we might do with this parcel. And her recommendation is that we use it as an educational resource and as a demonstration of how to promote old growth characteristics in the woodland. So if we waited 500 years, that land would become old growth forest, and it would have a variety of tree types. It would have a variety of canopy openings. It would have a lot of characteristics that support a lot of biodiversity and support wildlife. But if we wait 500 years, we'll all have old growth characteristics. So what we're trying to do is promote some of those characteristics a little quicker than they would normally happen. And so this would involve things like doing some cutting to open up areas of the canopy so that you get some regrowth of trees. The problem is that the land started out as pasture, and so all of the trees are roughly the same age. And so if you can get a little age variety in your trees by doing some selective cutting, and rather than try and haul the wood out, just leave it lay. And or just girdle a tree and let it stand, and then it becomes a snag, which is a great habitat for a lot of things. What we're proposing is that we work with Hannah to do a bunch of these things. Right now, there's a lot of invasives on the property. We would try and get rid of those because if we open up a hole in the canopy, the invasives are just going to come in and fill that. We have a lot of overbrowsing by deer of some of the young tree growth, and so the trees can't get really established to get started. And so we might look into ways of physically blocking some sections of the land so that the deer can't get in and overbrowse those pieces. And then over time, you start to get the sort of variety that you need to make a good wildlife habitat. So in the plan, and I hope you all got a copy of this plan. So in the plan, we're proposing first just marking the boundaries, so we know if we're girdling trees, the trees on our property, not the neighbor's. But then going in and identifying legacy trees. So trees that we want to save. They're healthy specimens of a variety of different species. We just mark those and we might clear around them to give them a little more space if we need to. But whatever clearing we do, the wood just falls where it falls and we leave it there. We've also thought about, as we're doing this, letting people know, here's what we're doing and here's why we're doing it. So we might have some presentations at the library about old growth characteristics and how you would do it. We might invite people to come to the town forest and see, here's what we're doing. We might have an interpretive trail that would wind through the property and it would say, okay, here we're trying to open the canopy. Here we're doing whatever else we're doing. And so we would try to use this as an educational tool because it's too small really to do much else with. But if we can leverage that piece of land by talking about here's what we're doing with the rest of the people in Hartland, we might get other landowners who would say, oh yeah, I could do that on my land. And then we could kind of get a little more buy-in and a little more activity. So that's kind of our plan. And we had outlined a series of steps, both short-term, medium-term, longer-term, to implement that plan. And of course, since it's town property, we can't do anything on it without select board approval. And so we're hoping that we can get that approval and then we can get started.
I understand the idea of girdling a tree, but it just feels like there's two poles here. One, to the safety of the general public and not having widowmaker trees versus just taking the tree down.
Yeah, and I think that one needs to be a little careful in deciding which trees you're going to do that with. An ash, I don't think you would girdle and leave standing because those tend to get brittle and then branches fall down. But there are other species that you can girdle them and they'll stand there for many years without growing branches or causing any harm. The other aspect of this is that how many of you have been in the town forest in the last 2 years? Oh, good for you. It's not very heavily traveled. And so the probability of somebody doing a tree felling is fairly small. But there are other, we would probably pull down some trees too, just so that we get that sort of land at the bottom of the tree that comes on there again. It makes good habitat. And so the more we can get in there and do some of those things, the better, I think.
Rob, you had as kind of a phase 2 for the intermediate objectives, trying to deal with the parking.
Yes.
I worry about the parking and
Yes.
that
We do too.
if we're successful and we get more people out there, then the adjacent property owners will be not too happy.
So right now, there's one parking spot, 2 if you squint over to the left as you're coming up Katy Brook Trail. Beyond that, you would block the gate, which we don't want. You can't park on the right side of the road because that blocks John Samuel's land. And so you're really stuck about parking. And so on the commission, we've talked a lot about this and tried to brainstorm some ideas. I think our best hope would be if we could find a spot on Jenneville Road that we could have just a pull off on to the side of the road that would accommodate 2 or 3 cars. And then we could use that as parking and then people can walk through the trail. From Jenneville Road, it's not very long walk to get to the trail. But I don't really see a solution for the parking on Katy Brook Trail or town forest as a quarter mile up the road.
Yeah, so wetlands are right there. So,
Yeah, no, parking is a real sticker, and I don't know what we can do about that.
So there's no marketable timber on that property?
There's timber that if you had it in hand, it would be marketable, but to get to it, you'd have to get some kind of logging equipment up Katy Brook Trail, which is often difficult because of the beaver pond there at the end and the trail washing out. I'm not sure that it would be worth the effort, the expense. We had John Boughton, when he was county forester, looked at it. He said, don't bother, it's not worth it. And Hannah Dallas, when she's been county forester, she looked at it and said pretty much the same thing. So,
I've been asked about the trail. Apparently GMHA is utilizing the trail.
yeah, so the Katy Brook Trail is a separate thing. It's a legal trail that runs for about 2 miles. And it's technically owned by the town, but the Green Mountain Horse Association has put a lot of money into maintaining the trail. And so when a culvert needs replacing, they're the ones who write the grant and come up with the money. And by the beaver pond washes out, they're the ones who fill it back up again. The town doesn't usually.
By them financially fixing the trail, they become the people that say who can use the trail?
No, they have no say in that.
They do not.
It's a legal trail, and they have access to it just like any member of the public does, but they can't restrict any access.
You cannot
to it.
restrict any access.
No. Now, the town has a legal trails policy, and that governs Katy Brook Trail and the other 7 legal trails in town. And in that, it specifies that there are no motorized vehicles allowed, except if the town manager gives them a permit. And we suggested when we put that in place, that the town manager be able to give adjacent landowners sort of a standing permit. Because a lot of times the landowners need to use motorized vehicles to get to their land or across their, from one side of the trail to the other. And so the town manager can issue a standing permit for abutting landowners so that they can use the trail, use motorized vehicles on the trail. Otherwise, people are not supposed to be using motorized vehicles. Now, Katy Brook Trail, if you go in there in the spring, you'll find 8-inch ruts of people who have taken pickup trucks and other vehicles in there. They're not supposed to. But enforcement is challenging. There is a gate across that, or at the southern end of the trail, but it's never been closed as far as I know. And the rumor has it that when it was first put in and closed, somebody came along with a pickup truck and ripped it out. So the north end, up at the wildlife management area, there is a gate across there. I don't know if that gate is ever locked, but at least it's a barrier. And we could try to put some sort of a barrier, a removable barrier down at the south end. But that's a different discussion, I think.
yeah, I think the town actually mows the lower end of the trail once a year or something like that, just to kind of push back the growth.
Yeah. So.
I'm curious, when you talked about the research, you referred to in sight of Ye Great River History and Houses of Hartland, Vermont. Is this something that you found in the library, or is this a?
Yeah, that's from the Connecticut River. Yeah, that's been around.
Okay, so it's basically the Great River is the Connecticut.
River. Yeah.
Mighty Lola,
If you're a history buff, that's a great resource.
yeah.
Well, and when we've been working on Summer Falls, and we want to include a lot of the history of Summer Falls area, so that book will be undoubtedly something we'll.
I'll support that.
Any other questions for Rob?
No, so I think you're just asking us to approve
Yes.
the plan so we can move forward with it. So if that's the case, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the Jenne Town Forest Management Plan of 2024. Question?
Actually, my name is Lynn White, and I've been communicating with Rob regarding the plan, and I do have some very serious concerns prior to any kind of approval. We also spoke about the wildlife impact, and because I certainly can't answer to that intelligently, and I wasn't able to reach anyone at the state, I invited Frosty Hammett, a friend who is a biologist, which I'm sure everyone probably knows. So I've asked him if he would maybe speak to that piece of it, if he could, about the wildlife impact with any type of changes in the forest. I'd let you go first.
Sure.
Can we hear what your concern is that you're bringing across from High Frosty? It's been a long time.
My concerns are going to be related to the serious parking issue and some of the, motorized vehicle, discussion. Now that I'm hearing more about girdling trees, I really would like to have a comment about that. But again, I thought I'd let Frosty go first.
Okay. And sir, who are you?
I'm Forrest Hammond, retired wildlife biologist, long-term resident of Hartland.
Right.
Sure. And first, I'd like to start off by apologizing to the Conservation Commission because they did reach out to me for assistance with some of this, but I've been really sick the past year, unavailable.
I missed you.
So I hope I don't come across as sounding negative, but I am concerned that perhaps the report doesn't address enough about possible wildlife conflicts with the different scenarios that have been laid out. Most of it sounds really good for wildlife in general. Opening up patches and stuff in the forest is great for wildlife to give more diversity and that type of thing. But I would, and I haven't seen the map of the habitats there and stuff yet, but the overbrowsing by deer in some areas may indicate that that's where they winter, and that's very important to them. And so any recreation trails and stuff that are being built through the area needs to address that. They're not incompatible, but they need to have some planning done to make sure that that's there.
Yeah.
And a little concerned about the mention of deer as over-browsing so that other trees can't regenerate and stuff like that. And I'd like to just see what's going to be done about that. I've never heard of the term of blocking deer out from areas. It's hard to keep deer out of a garden or anything with a 10-foot fence. So I'm not sure, but I wouldn't mind learning more about it. Hannah's a very good forester, but she's not a wildlife biologist. So the other issue I'm concerned about too is making sure that it's recognized the long-term culture of hunting in Hartland. And again, recreation trails need not be a conflict with hunting, but again, there should be some planning done on that and make sure that that's recognized in the report. So those are the two issues I've got. Lynn's got a lot more, I think, other than just that.
And Forrest, when the culverts were replaced within the last year or two, we did have Vermont Department of Fish and Wildlife down to approve the plans and to oversee, to make sure that there was no sediment pollution to the streams.
Sure.
So we have been, we were conscious of the streams. I don't think the forethought was to those items that you mentioned, given to those items.
I think I just have a question for Rob before we move on. That's okay. Quick question for Rob.
Sure.
So Rob, are you proposing a new trail? And if so, how long?
Yeah, so the trail issue is a little vague at this point. When, back in mid-90s, there was a graduate student from Antioch who did a master's project on the Jenne forest. And he proposed at that time a trail that would sort of weave back and forth across the property, and it would be a recreational trail. As far as I know, that was never built, and nobody has clamored for more recreational trails on the forest. So rather than trying to make it a recreational trail, what we were thinking is try to make it more of an interpretive trail, and have it go to sites on the property that are of interest. So there's a foundation in the northwest corner of the property. There's a stone wall that cuts through the middle of the property. And then as we're doing some of this management for old growth characteristics, that would presumably generate some sites of potential interest. And so we are thinking about putting in a trail. And that trail, I think, could easily be compatible with deer yard, if there is a deer yard there, which we don't really know. And hunting, we actually talked at a commission meeting about hunting, and we decided to leave it out of this plan and just assume that people can hunt. They can do all of the things that they could do legally. They could walk, they could snowshoe, they could bird watch, they could hunt, they could fish. So we didn't specifically address hunting. By not specifically addressing it, we felt like that allowed it.
The Aquabog, there's a sign that's posted there that says hunting is allowed. That might be nice to have one there.
We could do that.
And I'd suggest that perhaps if there is an area that can park for people before they go in on the trails, there might be a sign with the dates of the deer season and a recommendation people wear orange during that time period.
Or go home.
It's not really a conflict. We don't have recreations getting shot all over the state. And I've never heard one in Hartland. Clyde might know of one, but I've never heard of an accident like that.
I mean, they sort of do that at Scutney, because, it's people who hike it, but it's also a great hunting area.
So you just give them the opportunity, then, when the season is, they can choose to hike or not, but if they do, please wear orange, and there won't be an issue. Yeah.
So, Rob, I was wondering, so I really like this plan, but generally speaking, it's pretty broad. I wonder when you start to get into specifics such as wildlife management and some of the other things, maybe we try to do a little bit more outreach and the like, so that we can address some of these concerns as you move along. I mean, it seems as though in the near term anyways, it's like picnic tables and things like this. But I'd like to hear more about the motorized vehicle issue that happens with all trails in Vermont. It's very difficult to address, but if you wouldn't mind, and then we can reach out to people like Frosty and others, and maybe you can be of assistance at a later time.
I'm getting progressively better and have more time and energy to do stuff like that.
Does that seem reasonable, Rob?
Yeah, that's fine. And what I'm anticipating is, as we move forward, that if there was something that we were going to do, if we were going to cut a bunch of trees, we would come back to the select board and we would tell you, we're thinking about doing this, and give you the opportunity to provide feedback.
When I look at this, your first steps are all kind of research, evaluate, mark.
Painting the boundary.
You're not doing anything
legacy trees.
concrete, so you're just
stuff like that. So, if we were going to do cutting, even if we were going to do girdling, we would come here and we would ask for your advice, and we certainly could check with Lynn and Frost and the other landowners.
Is the point of girdling like to allow the tree to die slowly?
Yeah, well, it's to allow it to die and keep
Because-
standing.
Because
The snags, those standing snags provide wildlife, a lot of interesting wildlife habitat. So the woodpeckers come in and then squirrels nest in there, and there's all kinds of things that those snags provide habitat for, that if you cut it and drop it, they don't do that. So having some standing snags is really a useful part of the forest.
My name is Lynn White, and some of my concerns now are with this girdling. I know that a few of you have said that you've been out to the Hartland Town Forest, recently. I do think that there is a fair amount of hunting that goes on, so I think the girdling sounds to me a little bit dangerous. I know that I hunt out there, my husband does, my son does, my grandsons do. So I think there's probably a little bit more of that activity going on. We've encountered many other hunters out there at varying times, throughout the hunting season. So I think the whole girdling idea sounds a little bit dangerous to me. There's nothing like having a widowmaker that you just, walk under. It can be kind of scary. I think that's not a good idea. Another concern that I have, and Ron, we've talked about this, is the parking. And I know that everyone has said, yes, we recognize that it's an issue, that it's a problem. I've been out there, my husband and I, our property comes down from Dodge Lane and actually crosses the Katy Brook in one area. So a lot of that is swamp that everybody goes by, most of it's ours. But as we've been out there with our pickup truck to, trim around our apple trees out there, or, get a tree that's actually across the road, we can't get out because somebody's blocked it. So we're stuck there with our pickup truck at the beginning of the gate and walking home and then coming back and forth to see when whoever it is moved the vehicle. It's not okay. We've also been down there with our chainsaw, we're ready to go out to work, and someone's blocking it and you can't get in. So this is the only vehicle or access space that we have is by the Katy Brook entrance. So it's not okay to have someone block it at all. So the parking is a problem. And I think before we add more traffic out there, with people coming in, whether it's one or two more, it doesn't matter. There are going to be individuals that are marking the boundary, inventory, plants and animals, identifying these legacy trees, installing the new signage. I think you have to address the parking situation before you introduce any more. It's already a problem. And I think you're just going to exacerbate it by adding this into it.
Is there parking on the other side of the trail in South Woodstock?
There is more parking in South Woodstock, yes. And there is the gate there. They do have a padlock on it, but to my knowledge, and this has been many, many years, it's never actually been locked. It's just, kind of hung over there and you take it off. I don't know how much on the upper part you can actually get down to the vehicle right now. You might be able to, but I know that they've been doing, a lot of work, just up past where the picnic table is or was, and below the deer yards, because that was all washed out. It's kind of messy.
And what does the signage say there now?
There's the signage in the South Woodstock side. I really don't think it addresses parking. I don't think I've even seen a sign up there. It's the signage is down below on the, our end. And I think it identifies the trail. We've seen people walking it and occasionally, bikers. But it's the parking. People do walk out through there. The parking it's got to be addressed first, in my opinion. I don't think that we should approve it. The board should approve the plan and move forward with increasing, activity out there until they resolve this issue. I know they want to block John Samuel's driveway, I understand that. I don't believe that Bill Donahue was giving them access to park on his property, which is the other side. So we're stuck right in the middle here.
Right.
There's Katie Brook, there's John's driveway, and there's Bill Donahue's.
Right, and the two Johns there, John Caceres and John.
Yes.
Paul, right.
Yeah, so effectively, you'd be blocking both of their driveways if you're parking anywhere near over there.
Yeah. I'm sitting here, I don't have a solution for parking.
That makes two of us.
Well, we will be talking about police contracts later on, so maybe one of the things we can do is have some enforcement, you know.
But that's signage
And,
police contract.
you know, I haven't been out there. I know, in North Heartland, you know, there could be a chain put across it with a lock, and then only certain individuals have access to it. You know, it's a very, very difficult problem, and I work for towns in the area. Everybody complains about this.
I had
Yeah.
suggested that perhaps, you know, if you have the signage there, we're gonna add new signage anyway, that at least the signage could say, do not block access to this trail. Violators will be towed at their own expense.
Right,
And then we have to be able to do that. But I
right.
think there has to be some sort of, you know,
Yeah.
incentive, shall we say,
Right.
to get people
Yeah.
to pay attention to that. Because clearly they don't
Yeah.
at this juncture.
We hear you. Yeah.
And I think the whole enforcement piece kind of falls into the same thing, is that if, in general, the general public, you know, is not going to be able to have motorized vehicles, you know, so we're not hearing motorcycles or whatever, it doesn't make any difference. But if they're, who's going to enforce that? So that was another thing that I think needs to be somewhere mentioned in the plan. Now, if it's John that's going to enforce this, what are the steps? And if he's going to give permits out, what's the criteria for, you know, giving permits to non-landowners? What do people have to do? Just go see John, and I'd like to be able to drive up to Katy Brook. So there's nothing in here that specifically addresses any
There's
of
a
that.
separate policy on the website that talks about access to class 4 trails.
So this is more a forest management plan. We understand that it gets very complex, but they're really,
But
I don't
landowners.
think you want to get into parking enforcement as a conservation.
There's a suggestion in the chat that maybe there's available land that we could look at for additional parking. So I think it's something that we, you know, I can investigate, you know, if
Yeah,
there's,
I
whether it's
agree.
within the right of way on the existing town road.
Do you usually have like 1 or 2 cars parked there, or is there?
The most I've ever seen down there is 3, and then it was like, are you kidding me? Because they're like right tight up, and it's, you know, boom, boom, boom.
Is that hunting
but
season?
literally we
Is that
can't
during
do-
hunting season?
What's that?
Hunting season?
Oh, no,
Or
no,
was it?
no.
No, we did a walk with representatives from the construction company that did the work this past summer. Martin and I had a vehicle. There probably were 5 vehicles, and we were trying really hard, you know. We didn't block driveways, but it's.
If you don't
it's
block the
difficult.
driveway, you're going to block the access to the road.
Yeah.
And landowners can't get by.
Yeah.
And I think that we have to have a better plan.
How many times a year do you have to get in there with a vehicle?
I don't know,
Like half a dozen?
at least, yes.
So what are we really?
One thing we could look at is what is the right of way?
Right.
And perhaps there is off to the side, parking could be created within the town's right of way.
That's, yeah.
What is the road? Is it class?
Well, it's class 4, it's a trail, but,
Okay, how many feet does the town own from the center line of the
well,
road?
we'd have to look at when the road was laid out.
Right.
What it is it 2 rod, or 3 rod, or what?
They're usually
It
not
could
very wide when they're
possibly
class 4, so.
Yeah.
It could possibly be 4 rods wide, because it was the county road.
Yeah, but Jenne was a class 3. This might be wider.
Let's talk.
I think you heard some concerns with the location of the trails and habitat management. And I'm hearing you say that when it comes time for thinking about that, you would engage more professionals in that area. Some hesitation on the girdling of the trees in that part. And I think the parking is something we need to have John begin to do a little research and doing that. Does that summarize what you're thinking?
Yeah, I think it does. I'm not sure though, like when I look at the first steps here, so it's a lot, the parking problem, the trail development is like the 3 to 5 year intermediate term. When I look at first steps, I don't think we should prevent the planning, the Conservation Commission from moving forward with those. Right. They're all basically identification, research, collaborate, mark boundaries. It's fairly routine stuff.
Yeah, what I was getting at is hopefully there would be an addendum to this as you move forward. So there'd be a wildlife aspect to it, a trail aspect, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But I agree. I think we should approve it.
Okay.
With the understanding
that maybe they can park on the South Woodstock side, not in front of the gate while they're working.
As long as they can find a place to park that when they're working, that's not blocking the gate.
Yeah, I think the parking has to pop up right away. So should
that's going to be in front of them in the conversation.
Okay.
Should not hold property.
So I can make a test motion and see if it makes sense. To see if we can get these guys started, but then have them come back and kind of check in on next steps. So I would make a motion that we approve the Conservation Commission to move forward with the first steps, the Jenne Town Forest Management Plan date of 2024, and then return to the Select Board as additional projects to commission. Go to commission additional projects.
Is there a second? Or discussion on tentative?
Or just we need to think about it.
Yeah.
So what happens to those other sections of the plan?
I think the general agreement is Rob will come back as he's getting ready to move on to other things.
So we're talking
I think we would do that anyway.
The intermediate objectives of 3 to 5 years.
So intermediate and long term would be returned to the Select Board for approval.
Right. Should we spell that out so when we're not here, someone understands what we're intending?
I can try it again. Yeah.
So just so you, because there's some intermediate objectives in here that I don't think anyone would be opposed to, such as controlling invasive species. Finding a solution to the parking, which we'll probably do beforehand.
Right.
I just wonder if we can just adopt the plan. It should be in the minutes with the caveats that were discussed. Trust the Conservation Commission that they're going to come back. They've been very professional about it in the future.
So let's think about the caveats. Would that be?
Well, Phil already went through it, so.
Right. But pursuant trees, trail development,
And the parking.
and
Parking and motorized vehicles.
Well, motorized is already dealt with.
But it was still stated, so I mean,
We discussed signage.
Wildlife habitat.
Signage
and wildlife habitat.
And I had that as part of the trail, the wildlife habitat. Trail development, and wildlife, impact on wildlife habitat. Because if we don't do anything, then it's the existing habitat is what it is.
When we were developing trails for summer falls, laying out trails, we did an ecological assessment of the property. specifically looked at. Can we be sure we're not infringing on wildlife habitats or endangered plants or anything like that? So I would anticipate before we actually build a trail that we would do a similar sort of assessment of what's there and how we would do it responsibly.
Can you try another motion?
Yeah, I'm getting real close, and somebody, if needed, can make an amendment.
I think there was some more discussion here.
Oh, I've got one comment, but after you roll it.
But once we vote,
What's
we
that?
may not be able to include, we won't include it then, so, you see what I'm saying?
No, I'd just like to say that, I've been on the property several times as a recreationist, mountain biking and hunting. And also when I was on the Conservation Commission, I was asked to look at the property. And I must say, and I've looked at dozens of town forests for management to help with their plans, as well as dozens of parcels for possible acquisition by the state stuff. I've never seen a more difficult parcel to develop. This has so many issues, and in some ways, looking at it from a town perspective, there's a lot of towns that they make money off the town forest routinely, and it's a rich resource for them. This is never going to be that for the town, except for recreation and educational purposes and stuff like that. And I must say, kudos to the Conservation Commission for getting it this far along. Yeah, but there are still a lot of issues that need to be worked out.
So how about, I just have a question about the trails. And there's a map with the trails on them.
Yeah, that was the map that Scott Davison proposed back in 1996. That's not where
That's not where we put the trails, right?
we don't know where we put it at this point.
Does that affect the landowners, the trails? How do you feel about the trails?
I think that it's probably a good idea to have the trails in there. But again, I think that Frosty's comments about making sure that people are aware of when hunting season is, that so they have the option to decide to either go in or not go in, or if you do, be smart and wear orange and something, that's very identifiable if you're going to be wandering around the woods in there, knowing that there's hunters out there. I think it makes sense.
So I make a motion that we approve the Jenneville Town Forest Management Plan 2024, well, with the understanding that the Conservation Commission will come back and talk to the Board of Select Board with regards to trail development, wildlife habitat, and the possibility and girdling of trees prior to taking on those activities.
Okay. Any additional discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Tom?
I made the motion.
Okay, motion passes. Okay. Who's here first? Then, Frosty, thank you for coming. And I sure hope we can address the parking successfully.
I hope so.
If we think outside the box and really work on this, we ought to figure that out.
Okay, Rob, thank you very much. And
Yeah, thank you for your work.
yeah,
Frosty, good to see you, man. It's been a while.
yeah, I missed you on the Hartland board.
How's the bear population tested?
I've got a bear
Let's
that.
talk about bears and composting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Rob, let's say, I know it's too late to make a scheduling change. Thank you. But we do have a sheriff's department here.
Yeah, I don't, Sure.
Can we jump to 5 and then go back to 4?
Yeah.
Feel better every day.
Thanks, Jim.
That's why you'll be here. Thank you.
I'm comfortable with choice.
Yeah, it's still new business.
No,
That's great.
No one did.
I've got two up here.
Valuations coming up.
Okay, yeah, we're changing the order on the agenda on the fly here, and we're going to discuss the Vermont State Police. Let's do that separately than the Windsor County Sheriff, or why don't we just do the Windsor County Sheriff?
Let's do Windsor County Sheriff first.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So tonight is a discussion of the potential contract that we will need to enter into with the Sheriff's Department. In reviewing today, some of the documents that the Committee on Safety and Policing had worked on and provided to us, I want to just mention 3 things that stood out is increase the number of hours and hence increase the budget. That the service should include a mix of day and nighttime coverage and 24-hour emergency service. And then the third was 90% of the officers are level 3 trained. The other items we can talk about ongoing, so we have 2 people on the board here that were part of that committee, and was wondering if you had any high-level points you wanted to bring from the committee to this discussion.
Just looking for some feedback, information about what's been going on out there since this has begun. It appears to me like we're headed in the right direction.
Just so we all know, so what you have in front of you, the contract that you have in front of you is the existing contract that you all signed in April that takes the town under contract with the Windsor County Sheriff's Office from April to June 30th. This is not a next year's contract. It's a point of reference for the discussion for this evening.
Right, and the contract that we have currently says that the Sheriff's Department is providing level 3 officers.
Right, and I'll let Ryan. I'm going to throw that one to you to let you talk about that because we've had discussion as well.
I mean, hypothetically, right? Looking at the board for a second, hypothetically, we would, we're talking about extending the contract with the sheriff, possibly for more hours than we're currently contracting for, right? Is that
Correct.
Okay.
So what is the question for Ryan?
Well, I think you mean to talk to your points, and Jim raised the point about training, the level of officers that are being provided to the town.
Mhm.
It does say to the maximum extent possible.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
which I think is fair.
Yeah.
But what is that? Right now, Ryan, what is that? Do you mind if I call you Ryan?
No.
Okay. What percentage right now would you say are level 3?
Percentage of my agency?
Yeah,
We're about 60%.
60%.
The numbers today, so we're at 27 sworn. We just brought on a couple Paul Simitaro's new chief deputy. He's kind of going in like a COO type role for me. We're trying to focus for the most part to, I know level 3 is a big concern for the folks at Hartland. And so for the most part, we're trying to put level 3 people here when we have them. I think sometimes we get into the weeds a little bit about that. I think somebody who maybe is only level 2 certification, but they've been on the job for 20 years full time and a lot of other trainings and things along the way. I would probably take that person over a young kid who's 19, 20 years old, but just got out of a full-time police academy. You know, this one has a higher level of certification, you know, and that's a basic level certification. So there's some nuance to this level 2, level 3 thing, that, you know, 2 brand new troops out of the academy, a level 2 and a level 3 is not even comparable, right? But to say all level 3s are better than all level 2s, like I said, there's a much more nuance to that. But in reference to the level 3 thing, we know, you know, as we look forward to potential contract in July, you know, that we've sent over, I think that's when we're really going to focus on making sure that, you know, we meet those requirements or requests in the contract, which is.
I think that as one who was on the committee and they were talking about level 3 and vice versa, I think it was more a matter of having the appropriate training to address if there was a domestic or things like this, and that they were, and I don't know anything about it, but or the level of detail, but I think that one of the major concerns was having people be responsive to a call for a domestic, and that they have the appropriate training to be able to address the call. And whether, you know, and so I don't know what you get on that, but that certainly came up loud and clear for us. So, and I don't really want to get into what the 2 levels are right now, but I'm just trying to, you know, and one other thing I want to say is, you know, a number of people participated in this study group and gave testimony and so on. And so we really need to respect some of the things that they said. So granted, some folks feel as though at times we're sort of micromanaging this contract. This is our first contract of this type.
Sure.
And so we're to the best of our ability, we're trying to be able to do what we can to address what the concerns were that were
So I have kind of a question related to that. So the contract is really for patrolling, right?
No, we're responding
for presence in town, or
I would say that, no, I think it's both. I mean, we're responding for calls for service when we're around or if we're available. And if we go to this 40-hour-a-week contract based off your RFP, you're really looking more for calls for service response as well. And I don't know that the current contract addresses that as much, but the RFP, my proposal that we put together kind of addresses that. I don't know if you have that handy, but
No, we don't have it.
So the biggest issue that we kept coming up with again and again was response time. So it's the response time and then sending somebody that can actually make the arrest or do the job that they have to do. Is response time slowed down if somebody with a level 2 shows up versus a level 3 to anything that happens here in this town? Like,
yeah, again, you get, and I think there is a little bit of confusion about the level 2 and level 3 certification. So it's a tranche, right? So some of it is like, I want all my guys to be level 3. It's a funny thing, but, and again, not to get too far into that, but anybody that we can send can respond to anything. Some of it is like the follow-up. I can send a level 2 guy to go to a murder. He can't go there, and, you know, at the end of the day, he can't sign the affidavit. But all of our supervisors, I think, are all level 3. So,
are they asked to work towards the level 3?
yeah, I mean, some guys have been on for 20, 25 years, level 2. I'm not saying they're not going to full-time.
They're not going to go there.
There is some, way far off in the weeds, there's some ways to get folks to a level 3 certification. They're kind of in the works, almost like a portfolio.
Yeah, that's what I'm after.
And so the academy hasn't quite shored that process up, but I think you'll see that in the future where you get to level 3 certification. But one of the biggest difference is your baseline training, right? It's a 2-week police school versus 17-week police school. And then how do you train your folks after that? And so we've been working really hard to make sure that any of my folks are up to speed so that when they respond, say, to a domestic, they understand how to deal with that situation. The big thing is a level 3 officer can investigate anything from a murder, aggravated sexual assault, those type of things. A level 2, without other training, can't investigate that. They can respond and deal with it.
If an investigation is required, they'll get a call.
Say, hey, come here, I need your help. And something serious, we're sending a supervisor to anyway. Sometimes that's me, I live down the street. So
I would think if you're going into a potentially violent situation, be calling for backup.
Right.
And so there's been a lot of time since the beginning of this. So and you've taken on more work in other places. Do you have the personnel to be able to cover us?
Yes.
Okay.
We have some folks in the wings that are part-time. And one of the things this week, Paul and I are going to sit down and really hash out how to best allocate those hours and allocate patrol coverage. Because I don't think a Monday through Friday day shift thing here does you a lot of good, right? I mean, if we're going to allocate 40 hours, that's an easy way. We check the box. But allocating our resources appropriately, and we've got, I think we talked about 5 or 6 folks that would love to come on and work full time with me with our agency. So it's not, I'm very lucky and blessed. We don't have a capacity issue. It's now just kind of it's the funding issue. If I had more money, I have people in the wings that want to work full time. So I'm not concerned about staffing the contract. I feel comfortable with that.
Can you have a way of documenting the hours that you work so that for billing purposes?
Yeah, and so we send a pretty detailed thing to John can attest to that. We send, our calls for service. We punch it, what's called, so we have a records management system that most of the state is on. Any of the Hartford dispatch officers are not. They're on their own system, but almost the entire rest of the state is on a records management system that we share, state police, everybody else. So we're able to show.
And the last thing was dispatch. I think that was an issue. No, then I'll stop. So your dispatch system. So now we have to alert our community as to how or who to call. I hope not. Call 911. And that's the problem. The 911 piece, they get alerted.
Yeah. So
So when they call 911, they say, so 911 dispatch calls you.
They, most of the time, a lot of times people we answer in Hartland are probably going to be state police anyways, so they'll know, but
They're going to
Hartford or state police generally are, I would say, answer 90% of the 911 calls in this area. So a 911 call will be dispatched, whoever's the closest, fastest, unit, they work that out on the dispatch end of it. It's not going to get too bogged down on that. I don't think on the end user scenario, there's a whole lot of change. Call 911. If you call Vermont State Police and say, my neighbor's got a barking dog, they're going to refer them to us anyways and say, hey, that's a county problem. If we had this 40-hour contract. So I think on the end user side, an emergency call, nothing changes. They're going to call 911, either state police or us are going to dispatch. And this contract does not void state police being the de facto, they will end up taking calls if we're not around. Just that's what their $81 million budget pays for.
Are people going to be asked if they wish to call the sheriff's department for something in advance? So it's not always going to be a 911 call. There might be some activity that's occurring that we need to call the sheriff's department to see if.
Correct. So I think
how does the general public know that?
Right. So I think that would be on us, and Ryan and I work together to put out some messaging on that, right? Because it's don't call 911 for your neighbor's barking dog,
exactly.
Right?
But what I'm somewhat concerned about is if, say, it is a serious event, that the first response would be to call the state police, and the state police says, we'll take it, but it takes them an hour and a half to get here, and they don't call you. So I mean, I don't think it's as seamless, I don't think it's particularly seamless that it immediately bounces to you.
No, we're working on that, but,
Am I correct in that?
seamless, yeah, seamless is not the word I would use to describe the process. But it's not that clunky either. It's not perfect yet, but if there's a chance for them to give us a call, they would much rather do that. And nothing negative, but it's less work for them. But a serious, like a real serious crime in progress, people are coming. And they might say, hey, it's Windsor. I mean, somebody's getting chased around with an axe. Windsor.
I mean, if it's super serious, obviously all departments in the area are going to probably be called in.
Yeah.
But it's more, again, I keep going back to a domestic or whatever, where somebody, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, totally.
Is that, and this, I'm not trying to be, this isn't I'm not criticizing the sheriff's department, but if we're going to hire you, we're hiring you. One of the reasons we're hiring you is because of the response time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't want to frustrate people by saying, we've hired Windsor County Sheriff, but they're still taking a long time to be responded because you're not being contacted.
Yeah.
And so I just want to be assured that you will be contracted if the state police and outlying areas know you now have a 40-hour contract with the town of Hartland. Because this is a fairly unusual thing we're doing here right now at this thing where we're not asking you just to do traffic control.
I mean, all our other towns are providing calls for service, so.
You get my point, though.
I do, and it seems to be flowing well in the towns we're providing service for. This would be our largest contract, patrol contract.
How does that work, Brian?
Well,
For the other town you're talking about, do they call 911 or do they have?
so if state police dispatch picks up and goes, oh yeah, that's actually, we'll send you over to Woodstock. They'll transfer the call, that type of thing. We haven't really gotten a ton of complaints about it. It seems like it's working.
Okay.
Towns like Sharon, and I'm not trying to sell it like it's a great system. It's okay. Which, public safety, that probably is a little concerning, but it's okay right now. And the more that we, I can assure you that the state police will be pushing a lot on us. The way that, John and I kind of sat down and looked at this contract and the RFP and what you were looking for, we know that we're going to have people on call. I'm a little concerned about my proximity to Hartland, so I think I might be one of the first ones coming out, but we have, if we push forward with this, those concerns, response time, I've heard I saw the RFP, I listened to the committee, understanding what you guys are looking for. I understand what you're looking for.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah, nothing's perfect, right? And so I think it's going fairly well. And Phil, to your question about how's it work in other towns, it seems to be working pretty good.
Can I just interject?
Yeah, sure.
So I came up from Windsor County as a captain down there, and so we have many 40-hour contracts with towns down there. So our process basically was, if a deputy's going to be doing a 40-hour contract, whatever day it is, they always call the state police, says, hey, I'm here. It's 8 a.m. I'm covering till 1600 hours, 4 o'clock. Everything gets shifted right to us.
Can you clarify that?
I'm sorry?
So if during that time, after that officer calls the state police,
Right.
dispatcher, or whoever they call,
Yeah.
and I dial 911,
Yeah.
are you saying that the dispatcher knows to immediately call
Yeah,
this?
so when it goes to state police, we're gonna get the call because we're covering the town. So we're
Okay.
covering here.
Okay.
All right, so it's gonna go to us right away.
Yep.
All right, so it would be funneled, go from the PSAP system, public communication system, it goes to state police, and then it'll go right to Woodstock dispatch.
Mhm.
And then they would go, yeah, they're, state police, I can tell you, they'd always call and say, hey, even if we're not there, they would go, is anybody there? they'll call us and say, do you guys have a deputy around that could take this? Because we're way out wherever.
Right.
We won't be able to hear. Yeah, we got someone we can come over and do.
And what we've seen on the end user portion of this in towns like Chelsea, for example, much smaller contract, 14 hours a week, where people are calling, they know to call us. I mean, it's kind of spread like wildfire up there. So I think between an educational piece, between John and I working together, between the listserv, Facebook, all these things, just being out in public, I think we'll be able to disseminate how to get a hold of us well enough. But on the dispatch side, Hartford, the state police dispatch, our dispatch, they all know who's covering, who's supposed to cover who has that responsibility. So,
But is your phone line staff 24 hours a day?
yeah, we have 24-hour dispatch. Okay. So even if you call our office number, there's a phone tree. Do you need a police call, or do you need, civil process, whatever, office type things? It goes right to our 24-hour dispatch at Woodstock.
So for instance, this week, I was just sitting in the office this week. I haven't been here a month or so, but we get a lot of calls from Hartland, and they're calling us directly, right? So it's basically, hey, there's a car up the road, needs to be checked out, or another lady calls, says I'm missing something from my car. So they know they're calling us, it seems consistently, and we'll take the report. And if it's something that can wait a day or two until we had a deputy here, great. If not, we'd go right out. These calls that came in, we sent. Actually, I went to call. Just, it's always good. We can say customer service, right? We get out there, we talk to people, and make them feel that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Ryan, in the contract today's contract, under services to be provided, the first paragraph there's the town shall provide the sheriff's department with goals and objectives regularly that they anticipate will need law enforcement. Patrol activities shall be scheduled to achieve these goals and objectives in addition to answering calls for service. And then you go on to talk about the quarterly reports. So I think there's this delicate balance here where, we need to not Monday morning quarterback, you're in charge once we sign a contract for policing. But what is really meant by that sentence? What is it?
Well, at the end of the day, we're your police department, right? And so you're paying us to provide law enforcement service in your town. And if that's, hey, we care about speeding on Skunk Hollow Road, that's all we really care about, that says to me that I need to shift my direction there. Or if it's, I'm using very simplistic terms here,
Sure.
where if we say,
Coverage for that.
right, all we care about is driving the back roads, from midnight to 4 a.m. or something. All right, well, that's where, and that piece, I think John and I work very well together on that. He's, emailing me or texting me, hey, somebody came in and is complaining about Queechee Road, or, at Four Corners, or, hey, we found some drug stuff here, what's going on? So we try to be, I think one of the benefits of Vermont Sheriff's Department is, one, I'm elected, I want to keep people happy, and two, we're a contractual organization that thrives on, you guys writing us checks. There's a 30-day out. You don't like us, you fire us, right? And so I want to keep you guys happy, and I think Tracy's seen it. Whenever people complain to us, hey, I got people in my house at 60 miles an hour every morning. We've tried to be responsive on and off and get, a car sitting there, or, North Hartland, there's a lot of complaints about speed. I hate to just focus on speed, but there's some other things that I want to get into in a public meeting that we're looking into. But the idea of somebody calls us up and says, hey, we got a problem, we try to be pretty responsive to that.
Mm-hmm. I think I'd rather in the contract have specific activities rather than goals and objectives.
Okay.
And then I think,
What we're gonna do.
or, maybe in the, as we get you, so we've never done this before. We haven't worked with you. Is maybe we do monthly or every 6-week check-ins. You come and just talk to us and
The
we.
wording's a little funny.
Yeah, this is not a contract that we're gonna end up having.
So I think, right, goals and objectives just sound like kind of
Yeah, it sounds like what I do for a living,
policing
planning.
priorities for
I
the.
don't want planner language in my police contract.
Well, it caught me the same way when I was, preparing for tonight's meeting, so.
So what are the next steps to get those things? Yeah, let's do this thing.
So the next steps would be myself working with Ryan to put more detail in the contract for the contract that would be beginning July 1
Which would have to sign.
at the next select board meeting. Correct. But I think this conversation has been informative. What?
Would there be something dramatically different about the contract, like in terms of pricing or anything else? What we see here?
There will not be in terms of pricing or anything else, no.
Yeah, I think we actually came down a little bit on the RFP to make it fit your budget, what you're requesting, looking for.
Yeah.
I think we came down a little bit on that.
Sure.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Tonight it was a discussion, and then there'll be work between Ryan and John
Yes.
and others possibly, and then we'll come back in 2 weeks to get this finalized. Just wanted to throw out that I had an idea given to me that really fits with that. We're in a transition, and how do we let people know that we're doing this, and that maybe we have Ryan, one of your officers, and a select board member or two, or maybe John, but either at the farmer's market, sit there and just sort of say, answer any questions about what we're doing and how that's going, or set up a meeting at the library, or sometimes we think this is a great idea and then we don't get much turnout, but.
So you're saying like kind of a introduction meeting after the contract?
Yeah, especially since the committee talked an awful lot about community policing. And Ryan, I know you're thinking about that. So that would be a good way to begin to sort of say, hey, they're
Don't the sheriff of old home.
Stump the sheriff? All right.
You can still have it in there, man. I think, we were just at the Touch a Truck event too, so we try to focus on, we are trying to focus on those type of events.
Right.
But yeah, anything, let John know, and we usually try to get somebody there.
Yeah.
If you want to do a meet and greet, whatever that works out as. I love that stuff, so I think the more I also like being very organic, and a lot of my folks stop at Mike's and Three Corners, and I think that's very important to stop in there, say hi, and just interact with people on a organic basis, I guess.
Right. Okay. Any questions for us?
I just gotta say, coming up here from Windsor County, the sheriff's in a great position up here because we have a lot of people, which is good. We have people that are in the wings waiting to come here. So other departments in the state, you won't see that. So, which is good here. So we just actually hired 2 more level 3s that we brought in one from actually formerly from New Hampshire. They'll come over, and we have another one who's got a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then we have some level 2s, but, level 3s are hard to come by these days because like anything else. So we have good staffing. So that's something that, not a lot of other departments worry about, but at this point, we really don't need to here, which is good.
Yeah, and say publicly that there's certainly a different culture already from when your predecessor was the head of the group.
Yeah, I wanted to actually, I had to kind of do a little bit of homework too. I want to throw some of this out, you guys here. I just, there's always a complaint, not a complaint, but this feeling that we're, and not necessarily from Hartland, but I just, This kind of shows our motor vehicle stops since January in the town of Hartland, and the outcomes of those stops. Yeah, I want to just take a peek here.
I'm just happy I'm not on
But, you know, we've had 195 motor vehicle stops, because, I mean, that is traffic problems in Hartland are the things that I get the most feedback, whether it's North Hartland or Three Corners area, or the stop signs out here, right? It's a huge thing that we get. But I just wanted to show we're kind of a 70-30 split, you know. We don't write a lot of tickets. We're not out trying to, you know, blast the public. You know, it's a behavioral correction type thing. So I just kind of want to put that out there that we're not, you know, in the revenue generating business, like, you know, we used to be also, since they use the same time frame, because that's when one of my guys ran the ticket numbers. But I ran the calls for service that we've had here in Hartland. I think we're at 395 or something like that. The majority of that was motor vehicle stops, just the way our report system kicks it out. So 195 traffic stops and 101 directed patrols. We always punch a card for directed patrol when we're in town. And our folks put a little bit of information in there, but.
And that's since when?
January.
Wow.
So 101 directed patrols, which could, from an hour to 4 hours to sometimes a little bit longer, depending on whatever. But I mean, everything in there, you know, some thefts, some traffic hazards, some arrests, those type of things. And I'll leave this with John, but you know, we're not stopping everything that moves, but we're trying to do a little bit of traffic enforcement and respond to some calls. So. Thoughts or questions on that?
No, that was good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, nice to meet you.
Yes. Sorry to make you wait so long.
I'm sorry?
Sorry to make you wait so long.
No, that's good. Yeah.
Well,
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, yeah.
Do you want to go back to the, since we're on policing,
Yeah, yes,
just
please.
knock out this one as well?
Now I lost the contract for the state police.
Are you in technology?
Yeah, it's,
So while Phil finds it, this is a new state police contract starting July 1 for the next 12 months. We were under contract with them. There was a desire, I think, from across the town to kind of remain in contract with the state police, but at a reduced rate. This contract is for 4 hours a week. It's
What was the prior one?
15, but they were never billing. It was $70,000 a year, 69,000 and change.
What were they billing us at prior?
They were billing us somewhere between 6 and 14 hours. It was kind of across the board, but I would say an average less than 10 for sure. So this is for 4 hours a week. And again, as you heard Ryan say, that doesn't mean they're only going to come during those 4 hours a week, right? If you call 911, if there's a serious incident, the state police will still come. But this is that directed as their time allows, you know, Vermont State Police coverage in Hartland for 4 hours a week.
4 just seems low. You know, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing 32 for the sheriff and 10 for the state police. And, you know, like in any business that I've been in, you got to have redundancy. Or one vendor fizzles out, you got to have a backup thing.
Sure, we can do that. I think if we do 32 and 10, to use those numbers, we're going to come in higher than we have budgeted for.
If everybody bills every hour.
If everybody bills every hour, right. And I would anticipate the 32 hours a week getting billed. The 10 hours a week, it could fluctuate by the month.
Yeah.
if we go with something like 32, what percent, what's left over in the budget if they,
so
for the annual budget, we have, I forget how much.
145, it's 145,000.
Okay.
calculator.
Murray's got his calculator. Come on, Murray, what are you texting and not?
Yeah, come on, get off eBay.
How much?
32,
It's 65.
65 for sheriff,
The sheriff.
90 for state police.
Correct.
The sheriff would be 108, 160, 32.
108
160, yes.
And state police would be how much?
at 10 hours a week and $90 an hour.
That's easy.
That's, we can do that one.
$46,800.
So we're gonna come in $10,000 over.
Why don't we just do 8 for the state police?
832.
832.
Right on budget.
That should put you pretty close.
I get a full week. One day, one agency,
But
4 days.
most likely, they're not gonna do this 8 all the time anyway.
Correct, correct.
Exactly.
And it'd be a great problem if all of a sudden it happened.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
But if,
Okay.
you know, if we get a new sheriff in 2 years and this program dies, we have a foot in the door.
So I can make that adjustment with them and we'll get that signed and submitted to them. We're ready for July 1.
okay, then,
Do you have no offense, 2 weeks to have a contract done with the police,
With the sheriff's office
with
is,
the sheriff is pretty tight.
it is tight.
And do we have a model that you're gonna use?
So
or-
so this one and the one that we were working under before was provided by the sheriff's office. And then we went back and forth on some of the specific language within it.
I just wonder if we could possibly extend our existing contract for a month and then start with that. It would be nice if you could have a police, someone in policing who could review it for us to see if we're
An
missing.
outside police.
Yes, and I think
You get our state police contract is 1 page. Yeah, I mean,
so 2 reasons. One is I think there's skepticism, whether it's real or perceived about the Windsor County Sheriff's Department. And then secondly, we're new at this, and I just think we should be fairly careful. I think this town has a history of having poor contracts.
We have a
And
30
so-
so we can cancel this contract and renegotiate anytime. we want.
Well, what difference does it make? We just wait, take our time. I mean, look how long, we spent 2 hours on a forest management plan for 24
I
acres.
disagree. We've been talking about this. for-
We haven't talked about this at all.
we've been
We have
talking about
never
this
seen
policing thing.
anything. We have never seen a draft in front of us.
We have a contract here that we
That's
signed
crap. This is a
3 months
crap
ago.
contract. It says nothing. It says nothing.
I'm not upset, just, what's the difference between this contract and the state police contract that we've been signing?
The state police contract, well, one is the state police has a long history of providing services. We have a new sheriff, and he's building a department, which I'm really proud of everything Ryan has done. But, we just don't know enough about it. And I just think it's the responsible thing would be to seek some outside help, and as far as reviewing whatever we come up with. Secondly is, I don't know anything about insurances. What is the appropriate amount of insurance that the sheriff's department should have? It just said had insurance. I didn't see what the policy is. I don't know if there's a mandated amount that a police department has to have. I have no idea.
And I think your point's noted, but we have 2 weeks to review it before we can sign it.
But is there like
The
errors
state
and
police-
omissions type of thing and
State
so
police
on?
contract doesn't have any of that.
I get it. I get it.
so I don't,
You could have this reviewed by outside counsel. I think that's a very legitimate thing to do. I think it's a good idea.
Well, but they're not, but the outside counsel doesn't have, and I agree with that. I think we should, but I still think, and I think when we talked about this, Trace, we were going to have, when we did do a contract, and somebody would help us with it. And maybe even just Chief Frank would just review it quickly. I don't know. I mean,
I'm I'm in agreement. You know, it seems like it took us a long time to get to this point, but now that we're at this point, I do feel like we should take more time. And I'm just wondering if we could ask for an extension of the existing contract.
I can talk with Ryan about that, about his level of comfort with that.
Yeah.
With the understanding that we are going to have a full year contract with them. So we're not changing our mind.
We're not changing our mind. And I think
We're
that
not
would be
changing our mind.
important, but also, so Ryan is out there, I'm sure, being a business person, he's out there looking for people to fill these slots. So he has to be able to promise them that they have work. So what's 2 weeks? Is that enough time for you to come up with a contract that we could get this thing going and get it done?
Well, we will talk, the summer schedule gets really interesting in the next 45 days or so, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. I don't know. The short answer is I don't know if 2 weeks is enough time. I don't know if this would potentially not come back onto your agendas until the first meeting in August, possibly.
Yes, I'm not sure I really want to wait that long anymore. We've been doing this for a long time.
I agree with John. Our plates are pretty full. I'm not suggesting that we set this aside, but I'm just asking to give us more time that we can actually do this correctly. And then maybe
the things we're talking about, it seems like if insurance is an issue, the police would have to have it.
So might we, under the existing contract, extend that for 30 days or 60 days, upping the coverage? Right. So if someone is in the wings, he could actually, hire them. And then that gives us a time to actually get, for the rest of the 10 months of the year, a more solid contract.
I think that what we should do first would be to see what we come up with as the first contract. Mm-hmm. We might get a much more fleshed out contract from the Windsor County Sheriff's Office that speaks to all the concerns that are being expressed right now.
Yeah, we don't.
And then because we don't know what we might get. Right. We might get something that kind of checks all these boxes in 2 weeks is enough time. So I can put that on my list for this week to get that initial one. But if we need to extend it, I think I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
I do have some concerns about kind of renegotiating what we put out as an RFP. We said this is what we're expecting and this is when we want to do it. And we seem to be chipping away at that.
I'm not suggesting that at all. But what other things do we want to have in a contract?
Yes. Yeah, and I think running it by another department is a good idea.
Yeah.
But you're right to be concerned. I'm struggling to come along with your concerns because our state police contract, bare bones, just says, we'll do service. And
doesn't make it right. Yeah. I just think about other stuff we've taken so long to. I'd be shocked the first time we see something we're going to agree to it. That's all.
Well, meeting on the 24th, it gives you 3 weeks.
Yeah. Your input is not welcome.
I was going to second Marvin's motion. Special meeting for this one.
We could potentially do that.
Want to do that? Special meeting?
Well, I think Tom's right. We got to see the contract.
We got to see the contract.
We have to see the contract, and I think what we might need to do, and I will talk about it in a few minutes, is look at scheduling dates for July as well.
Right. And maybe getting, rather than wait for the packet to come out, as soon as the contract's ready,
send it out.
Send it for legal review. Send it to us.
Yeah, that can happen.
Okay. Any other?
Well, do we need to amend and approve the state police contract?
You need to approve. If there's amended to, I will work with the lieutenant to get it amended to 10 hours a week.
Or do
we say 8? Sorry, 8.
All right. So then I'll make a motion to approve the state police contract with the time between Hartland and the Vermont State Police, amended to 8 hours per week.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay. Thank you.
Laptop's dying.
I was like, do you want to, we can,
Watch this die.
you,
Need a little power vortex.
Oh, yeah.
the other two items, you could potentially table these two items. There's no,
I think
there's no pressing.
Easy one, no?
Well, the vendor ordinance is,
They could be straightforward as well, but
yeah,
okay.
yeah, and I would like to hear the group's reaction to the North Hartland School
I can give you a
inspection.
quick-
Well, let's do the vendor. Yeah.
So the vendors ordinance that you have, the red, were suggestions from, Jim, and then, so we talked about this at the last meeting, trying to clarify when the vendors ordinance is applicable and to whom it would not necessarily be applicable to. And then I will say, just under penalties, I did, when those dollar amounts were changed as well to make them an actual penalty. I think previously they were like $10 and $25, which is not really enough to, it's a very light slap on the wrist.
I liked it. Nice job, Jim.
Okay, I reread under the third paragraph a couple of times, and we're not talking about all of Route 5 or all of Route 12. We're only talking about,
Correct.
okay,
Village areas.
Correct.
where does that say the village areas? Oh, within town limits as follow. Okay, there's the key word. Okay. Well, no, that says town limits.
But it says Route 5 and Route 12 in the Heartland 3 corners and the Heartland 4 corners. So I think that there's,
But I think if you take all the language together,
Right.
we only have jurisdiction over land we control. We don't have control of private property. Right?
Okay.
So we could, and you go down the road, you know, ban vendors from private property, but that would be a very new,
Right.
it's a,
controversial idea.
We would not
let's
last
not do
for long.
that.
Okay. So there's no action on this. We're just basically saying, nodding our heads, saying this is good.
Well, I think we got to adopt it. It's officially adopted.
You have to, because this is an amendment, we have to warn a public hearing. So if we approve this, if you all say, yes, this looks good, we will warn a public hearing. At which point it
It should be
can.
like September.
Looks good.
60 days. No.
But I would just make a motion that we approve the vendor ordinance so that it may be brought to public meeting.
Can we date that so just so we know in the future?
Yeah, exactly. That was my point. Let's put a date on it. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. No.
Twice tonight, Jim.
So then the next thing you have, starting on the back page of the vendors ordinance, is the printout from the inspection report that we had done at the North Hartland School. There was, the printout is a bit of a clunky way. I can forward the email for you all to view it in. It is much easier to view.
I didn't say you guys, I got plenty of information out of that.
So there's, the short answer is there's not a ton of like essentially red action items, a handful. And then there's a handful of kind of yellow, the way he color codes them, red, you need to fix this right now. Yellow, I strongly encourage you to fix this. And then I think it was green, just like, we might want to think about replacing the siding because it's starting to, the paint is starting to peel away and things like that. The two things that he specifically did not cover, but I spoke with him at the inspection, were asbestos and lead paint. The conversation, the ceiling tiles in the main room of the North Hartland Schoolhouse are of an age that he suspects that they would have asbestos in them. The safest thing to do is just to cover them up. The less you disturb them, the better off you are. So you just kind of put sheetrock right over top of them. And then the lead paint, we could specifically test for lead paint, but there's an added cost to that. But again, based on
the second spot that was asbestos as well. Right?
I think
there were two.
there, yeah. I'm just, when I was speaking with him at the time,
We are also finding in older buildings where they have caulking around the windows is there's PCBs in it.
Well,
So I would suggest, and I think we have to have a long discussion personally about this building, is that we spend the $5,000 to have a hazardous building assessment performed.
Well,
And you could probably get that paid for through Two Rivers.
what benefit does that?
Then you know what you got.
With the work that this building needs,
So even if you're gonna demo it,
let's sell it as is and let somebody else do what they're wrong with.
I mean, if we can get the services done for free, why not do it?
yeah, I
It's
didn't
just full
realize you,
disclosure to whoever you can do it, you know?
but if it is true that we can get that done for free, let's do it.
okay, so the North Hartland School Committee also has this report. I have not heard feedback from them yet, but I will reach out to Two Rivers as a brownfields program, presumably then.
Yeah, it's, Sarah
Okay,
at Two Rivers.
okay.
Let me try and answer the question.
What was the
Cheyenne.
the hazardous what?
It's called a hazardous building assessment. Hazardous building materials assessment. Forgot it now.
Would it be easier to sell that? Would it be easier to sell
Because there was,
that wasn't labeled as hazardous?
I mean, there are things in here that are also, you know, aside from the hazardous, like PCBs, lead paint, asbestos, you know, it also talks about the fact that there's carpet and mildew and probably mold growing in the basement. There are other significant things that need to be addressed.
So the building as it is today, is a tear down and rebuild if you want a building.
For public use.
For public use, I think that the building itself was in better shape than was anticipated. The foundation didn't show significant signs of deterioration or cracking. The roof itself was not, you know, a complete redo.
Okay, I would suggest we really move on and see if we can get this study done. And we have a committee that's working on this.
And when are we gonna hear from that committee?
The committee was waiting for this report. This got sent to them last week or the week prior. I have not heard back. I will check back in with
There's not
the
another
chair.
time set for meeting that I'm aware of.
They were kind of waiting on this, and then they were going to schedule their next meeting to talk about it.
Okay.
So we're gonna hear about this again.
We will definitely hear about the North Hartland School again.
Is there any open a discussion on, like, can we get some feedback from the people in North Hartland to find out, or from all the town of Hartland, if they're interested in selling this building instead of keeping it?
So I think
What
that,
this committee is supposed to do.
right, I think that the committee is trying to make that decision,
Trying to help us.
and they will come to a future meeting.
It's primarily made up of North Heartland folks.
They probably like the building,
Yeah.
you understand, right?
Well, they like, correct me, but I think they're cognizant that the building's in rough shape.
Right.
They like Courier Park, and there's a history of sledding and,
Yes.
just using the park itself. So there's lots of,
Sell a parcel at $100,000, put 25,000 into the park and the rest of the rec center.
Let's just keep going.
get an artificial snowmaker. Okay, going on to the town manager update.
Great. So we're still down the truck that pulls the chloride trailer. They have until Wednesday to get it back to us.
Was that the DEF?
It's a ongoing surprise with phone calls, so Wednesday is the day. I told them when I spoke to them on Friday that if it's not done, we were going to come tow it back to a different location because we need it back. It's been gone for months. And we're starting to see the lack of chloride being put down on dirt roads as they're being graded. It's dusty.
I certainly noticed.
Yeah. So we have, today, V-Trans confirmed that July 1st will be the chosen date for the Willard Covered Bridge meeting. They sent along some outreach materials. So that's a regularly scheduled select board meeting. They said it will take their portion will take approximately an hour of that July 1st meeting. So that kind of limits what else we have on the agenda that evening. Because in addition to having V-Trans come, I think it would also benefit us to we can invite Heritage Engineering to talk about the southern bridge, the newer bridge that we just talked about at the last meeting, a load rating for that bridge. And then also inviting the folks who live on the north side of Mill Street there.
John, I wasn't clear reading the email. Who's responsible for contacting people in the North Hartland area?
We are. They work with the regional plan. V-Trans will work with the Regional Planning Commission to put out some kind of generic public information. The rest of it falls to us.
Okay.
But they did provide some kind of template language that we can use in outreach materials. Speaking of V-Trans, we were notified last week that a structures grant application that we submitted was preliminarily approved. This is to do the engineering for the culvert replacement on Jenneville at Densmore, the old stone box culvert. So it was forwarded up to Montpelier for final review and approval. But we anticipate getting that. The budget on that was just shy of $30,000. I think we submitted it for $28,900. It's a 90% funding program, so we would get 90% of that in grant. Our local match would be 10%. And then with that engineering, we can use that to build other grant applications to get that project done, that culvert replaced.
With a box culvert or a regular culvert?
It would most likely be a box culvert.
Historic preservation gonna really let you do that?
It is not a historic culvert.
I had them come look at it last year.
Oh, it's not historic.
It is not a historic culvert.
No, it's not.
So that's at the bottom of Densmore.
Correct. The one that kind of lines Densmore Hill as you're coming down. We are still working to fill highway positions. So anybody online, we're please,
Friends, families.
Yeah, we're struggling. We haven't gotten any feedback from the posting that we put out already. I spoke with the interim road foreman this morning about kind of pursuing some alternative outreach methods. So we're going to start on that as well. So the last one on the highway, we have an existing 10-wheel dump truck that we would like that needs to be traded in prior to December. If we trade it in before December, there's significant residual value in the truck because there's warranty remaining on it. The question that's come up from the highway department is essentially we know who will who we will trade the truck into and who we will purchase the new truck from. We've been down this road multiple times. Is there still a need for them to get 3 quotes for new trucks, new 10-wheel dump trucks, even though the likelihood is 99% sure that we're going to go with company A?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. That is
Is there inventory? Can you move this deal in a 6-month period of time?
we lost that opportunity. There was some miscommunication, and we had a green dump truck that was sitting there ready to have a Town of Hartland painted on it, but due to some unfortunate circumstances, it is now gone to another town with green trucks.
But if you can't get this traded in by December and get a new truck in its place.
There's a sense of urgency to get this done.
Right.
Because I think that from what I understand, the specifications that we want are hard to get a hold of. Like the transmission we want is not the one that most trucks are coming with. So that puts that timeline out further. So the sooner we act, the better off the more likelihood we are going to have.
You scare me when you make statements like that, that we're looking for something that isn't standard, because that could spell more maintenance.
I don't think it's more maintenance. I think that there's a desire. So all the trucks are automatics. There's a certain type of transmission that they have had success with that they prefer in the trucks. I largely defer to what they say. And if it all kind of makes sense. But I think if you can have transmission A or you can have transmission A by December, transmission B by 2026, right? We're going to go with A.
Okay.
So just getting back to procurement, you can just have a sheet of what you want,
Yes.
I mean, it's not an onerous.
It is not an onerous, it's onerous in that that does not exist. So it needs to be created. Yes.
So one last thing, can we go back to the person who's had that truck for a long time, do we owe him or her money?
We will owe them for the work.
So we haven't paid them anything yet? Because I think if there's any fees associated with towing that truck back, it should be that person's responsibility. That's too bad.
It's unfortunate.
You really would try to help local folks.
So I referenced it a couple times. So the July 1st meeting is largely going to be spoken for with the Mill Street, the covered bridges public meeting. We might be able to sneak in a couple of additional agenda items, but nothing of significance. And then the July 15th meeting would be the next meeting. I am out of town on that date, so we could potentially reschedule it. Looking for, or postpone it and then just have one meeting in July.
Sounds like we're gonna want that done. I'm not sure. It sounds like we have a lot of work. I'm not sure we can just go down.
Yeah, I think we can just reschedule.
Do you want to go to the following weekend? Which
Whatever works.
Second.
Whatever.
So
I
technically,
don't have a life.
the 4th Monday. You'll be here.
Don't tell a certain woman I'm with that. So what are we talking about then? July
22nd would be the rescheduled meeting date. Is it?
I have to go.
If we need to change it from there, but just so it's on your radar, that we will need to be revising that. And that is it for me for tonight. We ran through those quickly, so.
Okay, next agenda items is one that John and I have been on the CC list. We just arrived maybe today. The USGS risk map project team.
We'll talk about that in our correspondence if we want to.
Okay.
As it came in.
Okay. We have any correspondence?
We do have correspondence.
Really? Is there anything on risk management?
It's not about risk management. It is about risk map. So I can summarize this 3-page letter from FEMA really quickly if you prefer, but you're also welcome to read it.
No. I'm sorry. I would not like to read it. Would you please summarize it?
So the risk management division of FEMA Region 1 is updating the flood hazard maps in the state of Vermont, in particular in our watersheds. They went through a discovery, they call it a discovery process. They hold discovery meetings. I'm not sure if someone from the town of Hartland attended, where it's essentially an opportunity for you to raise your hand and say, I have a lot of questions about this brook or this stream or why this map looks like this. That was not done. They are in Hartland. They're going to be restudying the main stem of the Connecticut River. And then they will also be using better data to inform the revised flood hazard maps for all the other streams in town. So they're going to be, the historic maps were kind of built on 20-foot, those old USGS 20-foot contour line maps. Some of the lines didn't really make a lot of sense. They're updating that with kind of LiDAR informed mapping. So much more detailed maps that we're going to see. This is still probably 2 or 3 years away before we actually have maps to look at and maps to adopt. But this will have an impact for those folks who live in the floodplain, adjacent to the floodplain, or who have flood insurance on their property.
Okay. So what's the risk? Is the risk that somebody who doesn't require flood insurance now will require it?
That is a risk, yes. But, and alternatively, that those who are currently required to have flood insurance might see the requirement dropped, but not necessarily their flood risk reduced. So it's a years-long process. It's being guided by the state of Vermont, by the Rivers program. So
So how do people in the floodplain get notified that these meetings are going on?
probably not specifically. We have an obligation as the town to then put out public notice and information as these meetings happen. So there will be draft maps. This was the discovery process. They will take that, build these draft maps, hold draft map public outreach meetings where we can all huddle around the table and say, why you forgot about this culvert here or something along those lines. They'll take all that back, incorporate it, bring us back a final product. But again,
That's when the crowds come out.
but again, years. It is. But joking aside, this is my old hat. Obviously, it's a really like a once in a lifetime opportunity to actually have to inform these regulatory maps that have an impact on people's lives. The other maps that we're using now were done in the 70s, so it's
terrible.
Right. It's important to stay engaged and be aware of it.
Okay.
That's more than this letter says, but
Yeah, and the reference was to the Black watershed. I assume that's the Black River?
the Black River watershed, the Black and Ottawa.
But we're not in that watershed, are we?
Right. We are in the Ottawa watershed. They're also doing the main stem in the Connecticut, which is where Hartland
That's what
falls
we're
in.
in. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other correspondence?
That is it.
Future agenda items, we still have the dwelling ordinance. We talked about the North Hartland covered bridges coming up, the capital plan, potentially this watershed might need time. And the discussion with the listers on the reappraisal and type of reappraisal that's coming.
And I don't want the cemetery stuff to stick.
Okay. Okay. Then we do have an executive session. So
Motion
ready to
enter.
enter it?
So I would make a motion that the documentation that we need to examine contains personal financial details of the person's life, and therefore it's exempt from public inspection pursuant to 1 V.S.A. 317 C7.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Clyde. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Then I'll make a motion that we move to executive session to examine this documentation pursuant to 1 V.S.A. 313 A6.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Trace. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, now we're back.
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the town manager to use up to $2,000 of Merritt Campbell funds to, gotta be careful with terminology here, to satisfy a Merritt Campbell request.
That works.
is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Trace. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Okay, thank you, everyone.